the first thing to make clear is that we already have all that we need. We can say the point of practice is to make that clear. These more or less 4 days now, it's a precious opportunity to practice together, so let us make the most of it. In Buddhism and in Zen, it's often said that all comes from and returns to the heart or the mind, shin or kokoro. All comes from and returns to this mind, this heart. But what really is that? This is another way of making clear what practice is all about. For example, it's common in certain circles nowadays to say, what is this mind or heart? Well, it's Buddha nature, or it's Dharma nature, or something like this. But if we are not careful, we simply replace one confusion, one delusion with another. How can we actually confirm this, whatever we call it, mind, heart, Buddha nature, whatever we want to call it, but how do we actually confirm it in our bones? Not just in our head or even in our heart, but in our bones. That is, to truly come to rest, to truly come home. Buddhism and Zen also often talks about worldly benefit. For example, we may do all kinds of things in this world for worldly benefit, to feel better for ourselves, for others. But as long as we do not put an end to the dis-ease, the dukkha, as the first noble truth of Buddhism is called, it is still what is called literally a worldly benefit. In other words, it may last for a while, but it will not put an end to the dis-ease of our existence. And so it is called merely a worldly benefit. It's important not to make too big of a distinction between what we would call a spiritual benefit and a worldly benefit, because once we do truly see through, the worldly benefit itself is not really separate from what could be called the spiritual benefit. They are not really two different things. And yet, in beginning the practice, we must make clear not to fall into what is called worldly benefit. If you read the Buddhist sutras, it is clear. If you read Rinchi or Rinzai, the father of Rinzai Zen, it is clear. If you read Dogen, the father of Japanese Soto Zen, it is clear. But more importantly, for yourself, do you really see what a worldly benefit is and what the value and the limits of that are, and why Buddhism, in a sense, challenges us to not be so easily satisfied? Very simply, if we can just be humble and honest or sincere in our practice, I assure you, it becomes clear. the value and the limit of what can be called worldly benefit. This will become clear today and on Sunday. If we are practicing properly, giving all of ourselves to the practice, we cannot help but see through the worldly benefits. It's unavoidable. It's irresistible. We cannot be satisfied with simply going into and out of various states of mind, for example, one typical worldly benefit. Becoming very, very calm and composed for a while, another worldly benefit. Even learning how to care for others, precious, precious, so valuable, and yet still done from the viewpoint of the self, it is a worldly benefit. But practicing properly, it becomes unavoidable. We can't avoid it. It's irresistible. It pulls us in, you might say, giving all of ourselves in proper practice. Before this happens, for many people, the situation is one where they feel they must practice, they must do this, and yet they can't. They can't give all of themselves. Something always seems to get in the way. They feel this is what must be done, and yet being humble and honest, sincere, they feel they cannot. Well, if this is your actual situation, that's okay, that's fine. Savor it, see what it is. This is what is called dukkha, or tanha, the craving behind our dis-ease. Another way of speaking about it is to see. We are seeing how the self is one and yet two. It is split. It is split from itself. Somewhat satisfied, but not completely. Living now, but knowing at any moment we can die. Trying to do good, but often failing miserably. As if the harder we try to get out of this situation, the more we find ourselves deeply embedded in it. If this is your situation, don't give up. Don't even think you're practicing wrong. If you are honest and sincere, and that is how you feel, I really need to do this, but something always gets in the way. I can't fully give myself. Okay, don't escape from that. Don't run away from that. Don't corrupt that. See it for what it is. You do have all you need. To see that for the self stuck to itself, yes, it is a profound realization. I cannot come fully to rest in myself or in anything else. The deepest zazen, the longest samadhi, whatever it may be. The most thoroughgoing kensho experience, so-called. But we realize if we are humble and honest or sincere, that we cannot come fully to rest in this self or in anything else. This is a valuable, valuable point in the practice. trying to wriggle out of it, to escape from it, only prolongs that dis-ease. You see that, don't you? That trying to get out of it is itself a symptom of the dis-ease. You can't wriggle your way out of it. You can't sneak your way out of it. That is what practice is about at this point. To face the fact that we cannot escape from this. In a sense, that's what real practice, including Zazen, is. To let that whole seeking, craving mind come to its own end. Stop. And then see what is there. Anything else is what would be called a worldly benefit, whether it is just sitting, trying to convince yourself that you're satisfied when you're not, or passing koans, or transmission, lineage, paraphernalia, kensho, as they're called nowadays, these experiences. These are all, face it, worldly benefits at best. The point of Buddhist and Zen Buddhist practice is to stop and see what is there. To let that seeking, craving mind itself, yes, the very mind that is seeking to have some experience that will solve all its problems, to let that come to rest. Then you see how the very distinction between so-called worldly benefit and spiritual benefit, what we could call actually being without self, are inseparable. There's no problem whatsoever. But it's a fatal mistake in practice to mistake one or the other. In a radical sense, we can say there's no way for the struggling self to let go of itself. It's only prolonging its own dis-ease. Thus, the marvel of genuine practice, of genuine sitting in zazen, which is not doing something, not doing anything. It's letting the mind in its totality come to its own end in a wonderful, wonderful way, so that you can then see directly, immediately, what is here. And once you see that, you will not go looking somewhere else again. Again, you cannot overcome this dis-ease, this split, if you like, from the standpoint of the self, because the self itself is split. You must see this through your own experience. The self cannot put itself back together again. When we simply give all of ourselves humbly, sincerely, honestly to the practice, it becomes clear. There's nothing that needs to be put back together. There's nothing to overcome. There is no opposing position unless the self rears its head. You do have all you need already. You don't need someone else's question, someone else's problem, someone else's doubt, nor do you need someone else's answer. You are all that you need. As the German title of the book, The way begins under your feet. Huh? Yes, the way truly begins underfoot. And it ends underfoot, right here, nowhere else. Again, the split self cannot put itself back together again. But when it is finally let go, it becomes clear. You don't need to put the pieces back together again. You can't get there, attain it from the standpoint of the self, stuck to itself. You can only come from here. Many of you practiced with us in the Tannenhof for years, a wonderful place. And as you may remember, they had some of that Zen paraphernalia I mentioned earlier. One of those is the senior monk's incense box, a wooden box where they put incense and they burn the incense. Also, they have the clappers that they use there. So this is kind of a symbol of the authority of the senior monk. Usually nothing is written on it, but for whatever reasons, what happened to be written on the one used at the Tannenhof is simply 3 Chinese characters, which says, seeking itself is wrong, or seeking itself gone astray. Seeking itself is going the wrong way. What a sublime thing to have written there, where the head monk will get up, get the keisaku warning stick and go around and hit the monks that may be sleeping. Maybe yell at them. Ah! Meanwhile, there, right in front of him the whole time, seeking itself is going astray. Consider well what that really means. Huh? Finally, what causes you to go astray, to go away from this? Can you really do that? I would like to know how. How do you depart from here, from this? Can you? What is it that really opposes you, stands in opposition to you? Pain, wandering mind, sleepiness? Are these really the things that oppose you, that disturb you, that are hindrances? Or is it maybe something a little closer to home? You must make this clear for yourself. What is it that causes you to go astray from right here? Can you really go astray from right here? What is it? What is it that opposes you, that stands in your way? If the way is really underfoot, what can get in your way? Whatever way you walk, you're going home. You must make this clear in your own bones, under your own feet. I'd like to leave plenty of time for questions, but I want to make clear the question is not about worldly benefit, unless that's not clear. But once that is clear, the question, what is it that opposes you? What is it that really gets in your way? This is the question that you are to consider for these next few days. Make that clear, and the way is clear. Huh? Every step you take is nothing other than the way, I can assure you. But you must make your question clear. If your question is not clear, the answer cannot be clear. If you make your question precise in one sentence, what is it? This allows for a good response, both for yourself and for others. Yes, this is a bit of a worldly benefit here, but let it be of benefit, of service to others as well. Yes. So consider your question well. What is the nub, the essence, the essential point? And then we can make it clear together. One other point I would like to emphasize is tomorrow we will have a chance for online encounter, kind of virtual one-on-one. We have a good, I guess, 25 people here, so 5 minutes is a lot of time for one person. So be brief, precise in the one-on-one tomorrow as well. It's as much as I would like to talk with you. So many of you are dear friends. This is not the time for it. 5 minutes maximum. What is the question that must be asked? And if you don't have one, that's fine too. Just present yourself as you are, and we can take it from there. But we have less than, let me put it this way, we have less than 5 minutes per person. So be precise, as precise as you can. You now have about 24 hours to consider what is the one question that must be asked and made clear. Hopefully within those next 24 hours, you will make it clear for yourself and you won't have to ask me about it. But worst case scenario, I'm here for you. I would like to now hand it over to Bernhard for questions from out of the practice. Thank you all for listening so intently.
But I have a question. Hello, Jeff.
Yes.
You told something that if you have no question and have no answer, it's okay. But what's the difference between having no question because there is no question, or having no question because you're depressive or boring or maybe something else? What's the difference?
Night and day. As you well know from reading the records of those who came before us, some people are gripped by a question, what is sometimes called a great doubt. As some simple examples, the Tang Dynasty great layman Pang, his own, we might say, natural question, koan, was, who is the one who does not get carried away, we might say led astray from what we were talking about earlier, who is not led astray by the 10,000 dharmas? In other words, who is the one who does not go astray with anything? Who is that one? That was his living natural question. But not everyone comes up with their own question like that. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. The sitting itself, simply giving all of ourselves to this sitting, can be the question embodied. Do you know what I mean, Robert? Yeah. It can help a lot if it is precisely formulated. Koans are not just, vague general things. They are very precise. Uh, Being in the medical profession, you will well understand. You can open someone up and work with this incredible surgical equipment, very fine surgical equipment that doctors have, surgeons use. These are koans. But some people take a pair of scissors and they try to do this. It doesn't work. It just makes a mess. So there's a precision and exactness to the question, because then it can really go all the way through. But if you don't have, as long as you open yourself up, and you do, I know, to be open, to be, as I said, humble and honest and sincere, that's 99% of it right there. Then see what must be done. For some people, a question arises. Who is this? What is this? For others, simply giving themselves to the sitting itself can be enough. But to return to your question, yeah, someone may not have a question because they haven't come to this yet. They haven't realized that the one great matter of life and death is right under our feet. Most of us, I hope, will live good, healthy, long lives. May you live to be 100 years old. But I'm such a ignorant fool that I cannot even guarantee you will be alive tomorrow. Can you? So you see, this one great matter, as it's called, is always right under our feet if we open up to it, if we are humble and honest. We cannot hide from it. For some people, again, that becomes a precise question. Where did I come from when I was born? Where will I go when I die? And so forth. But perhaps the heart of your question is, for many people, they have not yet come to that. You follow? That whatever they do, death is always staring them in the face. And whatever they do, if they're honest, they recognize they can't quite give all of themselves, as much as they long to do that. When you love someone, you don't want to give half. You have to give all of yourself. And yet we all know, when the self-attachment gets, oh no, maybe I better hold back a little, So for many people, it's true. They have not yet come to the end of themselves, seen that it is right under their feet. That's fine. That's fine. As long as they are living sincerely and honestly, it can come at any time. It can come at any time. But it's good not to wait until some tragedy. Do you know what I mean, Robert? That's what often happens with these people. They think they have their life figured out. And then their loved one becomes very ill or leaves or dies or something like that. And they realize the ground under their feet is not what they thought it was. And it can be very devastating for them. It can destroy them. So in a sense, we can say the sooner you realize the truth of this under your feet, the better. But you can't force it on someone. When they're ready to see, they will see. But in a word, to answer your question, it's clear. If you talk with someone, you only need a few words and you can see whether they're running or ready to stop. But they have to figure that out for themselves. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that answers your question. Would you like to say anything else, Robert?
Maybe I will talk tomorrow with you.
Okay, fine, fine. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Jeff, there are masters who say the most important question is, who am I? Who am I? And if that's the thing you are sitting with all the time, I think that can be quite confusing and causing a split. What is your vision on that? What is your...
Yeah, it's very true. If it's handled in the wrong way, it can become almost a kind of
fixation or
a diversion, and it could create problems. I urge people just to be humble and honest and to see what's in there. We're not trying to shove something down people's throats, as we say, but rather helping them to open up to what's there, And for many people, Bas, it's true. That's the way the question comes to them. When I was young, that was my question. Who is this? I went to university and I studied religion and philosophy and got into the honors department in philosophy, and I was studying Kant's critique of pure reason. Then I realized I didn't know who I was. Here I was learning about the categorical imperative and incredible philosophy, East and West. It's amazing, eye-opening. And yet, who is this? Who is the one that's trying to figure this all out? Who is the one that one semester sees, wow, the phenomenology of mind, Hegel, you can understand everything from his point of view. But then guess what? Next semester we do Marx. You can kind of do the same thing with him too. And then Heidegger. And then, well, practically speaking, which one is true? Which one is true? And eventually it just comes down to that. If I don't know who I am, I don't really know anything, do I? Anyway, that's how it came to me. But it's true, proper guidance is very important, if not essential here. Yes, you need proper guidance from someone who has actually gone through it themselves. Yes, yes. But perhaps most important, Bas, is not to force this kind of question, but to let it come out from the depths.
Yes. That's what I meant. I'm fixating on this question or letting it come to you.
Yeah, yeah. When it came to me, there was no way I could get around it. This must be made clear. If you read the records of the Zen masters, you can see, and yeah, I mean, there are times when they look like they're pretty crazy. But if you're doing the practice properly, learning how to enter samadhi and sustain it, and again, just remaining humble and sincere or honest, I would say 95% of the problems are solved. But if instead you try to grab onto someone else's question, he had that question, now I have to have it. This is the danger of that kind of practice, trying to force something. What did I say in the very beginning? You have everything you need already, and it's true, but perhaps a little bit of fine tuning to make it clear, that's all. But thank you, boss. You're quite right. I see it often where people are trying to force themselves into something. This is clearly a result of some kind of a delusion, some kind of a craving there. I know I had it for years. Thank you.
Thank
If
you.
anyone else would like to speak up from their experience, please feel free.
Hello, Jeff.
Filter.
Uh, yeah, when I sit, I can understand where to go, but I have if you talk about questions, I don't know what to ask. If
Worry about it.
I,
Just
yeah,
deep practice. Give yourself to the sitting. Give yourself to the sitting and remain open. I assure you, it's there. It's there. You don't
yeah,
need to find something. Who is the one that is desperately looking now, Piotr?
yeah. I I want to be able to answer that, but I can't. So.
You practiced for a while, kind of drifted away for a while. Now you're coming back. Now simply sit through and make it clear for yourself. It's no one else's concern but your own, the one that is in the bottom of your own heart, Piotr. We mentioned the other day talking about this. It is helpful to be able to enter samadhi, concentrated oneness, and sustain it throughout the day. Very, very helpful. But again, we're not trying to create some altered state of mind or consciousness. Open up. What needs to be made clear in this life, Piotr? That's all. Okay?
Uh, Jeff, in your book, there is a pretty hard challenge, which is being one with the breath. So, what does this being one with the breath actually mean, and what's the entrance to being one with the breath?
The entrance is the breath itself, not the thought of the breath, but the breath itself. In other words, simply naturally returning our attention to this basic psychophysical, what is keeping us alive, right? If we stop breathing, we are dead. If we stop thinking, you'll be okay. If you stop thinking for a few minutes in a deep samadhi, no problem. You'll probably come out better. But if you stop breathing, we have a problem. So it's a very elegant practice, Bernhard, you see, because we're not putting anything there, a thought, a religious principle, a koan, but simply what we are always already doing. You have what you need. It's always already there. So instead of going into our head, thoughts, expectations, so on, we simply return to that. not the thought of the breath, but the breath itself. You see? So we're returning to the body and we're getting out of our head and all the thoughts, letting the breath breathe itself. We're also naturally, the focus tends to be here, out of the center of the body, using those muscles in deepening our breath. Of course, we're breathing from the lungs, but by using this muscle down in the tanden or the hara, we can really make slower, deeper, and longer the breath. Don't obsess about it. You'll just get headaches and stomach aches. But naturally, over time, you'll see one breath a moment. Don't try to force it, but just give your energy to the breath itself, not the thought of the breath. How good you're doing, how long it is, how short. No, just it's like opening the door to practice, opening the door of your heart or your mind, you might say. Huh? Does that help, Bernhard, or would you like to continue?
Yes, it does help. I think that this being one has been too enticing. Somewhat I stuck to the being one and just you know, it sounds so nice being one and so yeah. But the other thing is the distraction. What is this pulling me away from the concentration? What is this? Yeah.
That's a question you're going to have to answer, Bernhard. Because I honestly don't see what could pull you away from this. Unless you're somehow seeking, going after it. Isn't this enough? Do we need to add layers of thought over it? The sheer wonder, the miracle of this without one thought arising. You so well chose the title of the book because it's difficult, Being Without Self in German. So you, I think Bernhard, were the one who decided on The Way Begins Underfoot. It's a very good alternative, I think. Because don't you agree, Bernhard, that if you really see what is underfoot, you don't go searching again? If the most precious thing is right there under your feet already, why do you run off to foreign lands? Why do you go seeking elsewhere? I urge you to inquire into that for yourself, Bernhard. Okay?
I was surprised, as you said, to help others is a worldly benefit. Yes, I always thought it belongs together. To help others and being without self is something. It's one thing or belongs together, and so I didn't understand is the right way, I think, what you said.
What I said was even helping others is a worldly benefit as long as it's from the standpoint of the self, of self-attachment. That's the point. You follow?
Yes, yes, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, we all, or perhaps many of us know what it's like to sit in a retreat, wait for this precious opportunity, and then after the second or third day, your legs hurt so much and you're so tired and you're more confused than ever. And Barbara, helping others looks really, really good then, doesn't it? Huh? Wouldn't it? I'd love to go out and help somebody, which is really running away from the work you really need to do. So helping someone, we say there's two sides to that sword. Huh? Unless that help is coming from the right place, as you say, being without self, well then we don't even have to mention it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But how much of the practice in the Buddhist world today is done, how to say it, with less than altruistic purposes, mixed for mixed intentions. From
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
we have to be, again, humble and honest. What is it that really is driving me to do this?
Uh-huh.
Am I running toward the pain of others? Or am I running away from some pain in myself?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, I understand, yes.
Jeff, you spoke about the split of the self and also seeking. I'm not sure how to tell the difference, and because the split of the self I would have to accept and acknowledge. The seeking I would have to let go.
They're basically the same thing.
Mm.
Because what we call a self, and again, we naively think it's this, somehow this thing, this substance, somewhere, we're not sure where, here, somewhere in between. Sometimes we seem to lose it, deep, anyway, there's a self somewhere, right? I mean, what would I be without it? It's a good question. What would you be without it? But to see that the self, I wouldn't even say it has a split. I would say it is split. That's what the human self is. That's why it has faith and it has doubt. True? And if it tries to get rid of one, it usually doesn't succeed. The self doesn't have a split, really. It is split. That's the basis of Buddhism, although it speaks about it in terms of the craving that leads to the dis-ease. Again, you're a psychologist, so I'm not, but allow me to try, okay? Because we don't know who or what we are, we cannot come fully to rest. We seek something somewhere, either to get away from something or to go towards and embrace something. If I can get that job, that person, that career, that fame, that fortune, but it doesn't work, does it? It doesn't work. Often it becomes actually pain, becomes hell. And often what happens when we get the object of our desire? Are we then fully satisfied? Have you ever seen yourself desperately seek something and finally you get it, and then you say, you know, I'm not sure that was what I wanted after all. And then you start looking around. Are you familiar with this? Yes. The self is split. There's no way around it. And it's split because of this, we might say, not knowing who we are, not being able to come to rest. It can't come to rest because it's split. And so it seeks to put itself together. And it cannot. Thus, what we call, for lack of a better word, spiritual practice. As a psychologist or as a human being, Adrian, would you like to respond, please?
Well, I think the seeking, well, I ask this because to kind of extinguish the seeking is one of the noble truths as well, right? Or the cause of the disease. So to not give it energy must be helpful then, right?
Yeah.
So I understand where it comes from, and it's a useful thing not to give it energy. Yeah, thank you.
How to say it? Let the seeking self just come to rest. And you've touched that when you sit deeply. You know what it's like. That joy that comes out of not grabbing on to anything, not running away from anything, allowing yourself just to be fully there. There's a kind of a joy that arises, which is not dependent on condition. This is very difficult for the ego self to relate to because it's always some condition. That's why it's like a cat chasing its tail. But to give yourself to the practice, and even just for a few moments to experience this pure joy of not seeking anything. This is very helpful, you can see in the practice. Technically speaking, it's still a worldly benefit, but it shows the way we must do. What if you stop seeking, let go of that, and don't grab on to anything else? Don't need to. You already see that, don't you? You don't need to let go of one thing and grab another. Don't need. Thank you for your question.